All right, you guys, we are live right now on Terra 29. I have a super special guest. I'm super excited that he's been gracious enough to give his time today to talk about COVID for haunted houses. And he's with Fear Factory. Spencer Terry is here, and I'm going to pull up their promo video so you can kind of see Fear Factory and what they're all about. They're super well respected. They're also the first haunted house in there's Spencer right there. But we'll pull this up here and we'll show you guys this promo. All right, how cool is that, you guys? I'm going to bring Spencer on here in a second, but I just have a couple notes about Fear Factory. It's 6 buildings, 6 stories high, which is freaking crazy. They're number 3 via Buzzworld as far as haunted attraction, top 10 via USA Today and Travel Channel. Really well respected within the haunt community as well. And the guy you've been waiting for, I'm going to unmute his mic and bring him on. Spencer Terry, what's up, man?
Hey, good to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, so really pumped to talk about COVID and, well, not to talk about COVID, but talk about how we're preparing our haunted houses for this pandemic. But first, talk a little bit about yourself. You're the general manager at Fear Factory. So talk about a little bit about yourself and what you do there.
I am. So hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for helping save Halloween. This is our fight. We have a lot of work to do. So Fear Factory is it's this beautiful, amazing place. I'm lucky to spend some time here. We're a 6 building facility located downtown in Salt Lake City, Utah, which makes things a little bit tricky because we have about 3 acres, and on that 3 acres, there's over 3/4 of a mile of a walkthrough. With I think we have over 18 flights of stairs and the whole deal. So it's a really great property. You're welcome to come out. We love seeing other haunters come visit us. So. Otherwise, I'm the GM, the general manager. I've been here since 2015, I believe. And myself and the owners, we pretty much do our best to make sure that this thing is a beautiful machine, and we have a really killer team that just knocks it out of the park, and we're really proud of everyone. So I'm excited to be here. Hopefully, you've got some good questions as well. We're going to try and do some Q&A, both on the professional haunted house side, but also on the home haunt side as well. So.
Yeah, definitely. We can see your guys' comments. We've got some people, just a lot of people saying hello on YouTube. Nobody on Facebook yet. I'm going to see if I can pull up Facebook. Usually, maybe nobody's on Facebook right now. So yeah, while we're populating people on here, definitely post your comments. We are going to answer your questions. And to kind of get started, I guess, Spencer, we were talking earlier about home haunts. I see a lot of people in Haunters Hangout. See, I don't have to worry about that.
I was just like, oh my God, I look like a monster already.
It's like, see, you're perfect. You're ready for Halloween.
Do this. Let's do this.
But home haunts is most where a lot of us all start.
Yeah.
I just see a lot of comments on the forums on Facebook about home haunts and opening safely. So I thought we could start there and then kind of move towards the actual haunted houses. A couple other things I want to talk about is the Haunted House Association. And then obviously we'll dive into that PDF that you've created as well. Awesome. Harley says hello. So we are getting people from Facebook. So definitely put your comments or your questions in there, and we'll make sure to get them answered. And I'm just going to let Spencer roll with kind of starting off.
Okay, cool. So tell me where you want me to start.
I guess probably I kind of went backwards. We should probably start with the Haunted House Association, what you do there, and how you guys created this PDF.
Yeah, absolutely. So Fear Factory was, the Haunted Attraction Association, which for those of you who don't know, the HAA, the Haunted Attraction Association, is kind of like our industry best of what's happening in the industry, a really well-connected network. Not gonna lie, back when I owned my own haunted house in Iowa, I was not a big fan of HAA because I just didn't feel like it was worth it. Our membership would have been, I think, $100 or $200. Seeing what's happening in the HAA right now is really exciting. There's great leadership. There's a really good board of directors. It's the reason why I made a decision to represent Fear Factory and to go on the board of directors, because ultimately we need an industry, and certainly right now more than ever, to be able to kind of help get us all together and to start working together and collaborating. And so there's a lot of shared resources. There's a lot of networks. There's a lot of just support, which has been really cool to see. So part of what we made a decision of doing at Fear Factory is we were the first haunted house in the world to open during this pandemic. I don't know if that was the smartest decision or the dumbest decision, but needless to say, it was a decision that was really good. And we put out this 60-page plan of what was going to be, essentially what we had to do, all the hoops that we had to jump through, working with the governor's office and the health department, the county, the city. We hired a third-party consultant to help us with it, to making sure that, everything was ready to go. And we had a consultant that, told us and said, hey, you guys should sell this. You can easily sell this for probably $2 or $3K. And we realized then we started seeing just all these really big pillars of our industry starting to fall and just crumble, and haunted houses saying, we're calling it this year. We're not going to do it. And it was heartbreaking, really. And so we made a decision and said, this is not about money. This is about saving an industry right now. And we all love Halloween so much that we made that decision, and we said, well, let's give it away for free. So so we posted it with the HAA as a kind of a way to share a document internally, but then we also shared it globally for free. It's actually on our website, fearfactoryslc.com. It's under our FAQs. There's a spot there for it. And you can download the 60-page PDF. It's got all of our photos, our documents, the maps, what we did, how we did it. And it's been really cool. And Zach, thanks, for helping broadcast this to the world, because we're hearing daily, I'm hearing now from people from zoos or aquariums, not even haunted house people, that are reaching out to us saying, hey, thanks so much for this really cool plan. I actually just printed it out. I took it to my health department and said, if I do this exact thing, will you let me open? And they said yes. So,
oh wow, that's amazing.
It's really cool that it really is cool that we're able to help people do what they love.
Right.
That's the important part. So yeah, it's been really good. So yeah, we can maybe, if we can post a link or something to it. If not, I can tell people how to get there. Navigate. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So I'm a noob with this live stream. There is a way, and I'm going to figure it out while you're talking, that I can pop links up on the screen. We will get there, I promise.
Wait.
And
okay, cool.
So
no worries.
What's cool with that PDF is, every state is different, and it is sad we're seeing so many haunted houses saying we're not doing it this year. But what's interesting is, talking earlier with you, Utah isn't doing very good with COVID either. So talk about those challenges.
Yeah, we suck. It's, our governor's really done the best job he possibly can in working with our county mayor and our city mayor. Salt Lake County, and specifically Salt Lake City, and because we're downtown, there's more people. Because there's more people, there's more cases. And that makes it tricky for us as a venue, just because, there's other haunted houses. There's an outdoor haunted house that's an hour from here that's on this, 20-acre farm, and they're going to kill it this year. And good for them, because they already have a good show, but because they're outside now, that's going to really benefit them. And they're completely far away from, the downtown area where there's so many people. So we have lots of extra hoops to jump through, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And the one thing, I think, disclaimer to kind of follow up, Zach, with what you said, that ultimately, every plan, every state, every county, every city, every health department is going to have specific details, and they may or, there's going to be give and take in both directions. And so take what you can from our conversation today. Please ask any questions, and certainly look at the plan, figure out what's going to work best for you, cut those out, paste them in, build your own plan, take that to the health department and say, hey, here's what we want to do. So, and certainly for home haunters, you mentioned we were going to talk about that. I think it's going to be the same for home haunters. Not going to lie. I've already heard that there are health departments that are really concerned about trick-or-treating, pathogen transfer, home haunts, And you know, I'm a home haunter as well. That's how I grew up. I was 7 years old, started my first home haunt, and I was like, let's rock this. And so
Awesome.
it's kind of, you know, it's personal for me, but I also understand that, there's a pandemic happening right now. And whether you believe the hype or you don't, you think it's a crock of, I don't know if I can swear, you think it's a bad thing or a good thing. At the end of the day, ultimately, if we all want to have fun in life, we're going to have to comply somehow to kind of get these numbers down. It is what it is. It sucks, but it is what it is. So we got to kind of play the game a little bit to make sure that we're going to be successful.
So in regards of home haunters, I've seen a lot that aren't going to do the trick-or-treating aspect, but just make it a drive-by.
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of pros and cons for having drive-bys for haunts. What's your take on that?
I think at the end of the day, do what you love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if your home haunt is nothing more than carving pumpkins and putting them out on the porch, thank you.
Yeah.
If your home haunt is, blowing it out of the park, and you got dancing lights and all the different windows light up and different projections, and you got cool animatronics out in the yard, thank you. Like, whatever you're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you think about all of us who are watching and all of us that are in this industry, there was someone who had a home haunt who we knew in the industry, who showed us that little glimpse of this Halloween, this beautiful world, and we just fell in love, right?
Yeah.
And so even if that's, the one thing I would not want to see is a whole bunch of home haunts just say, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do anything this year, because those are the kids that in 10 or 15 years, those are going to be the kids that are going to want to come act at your home haunt, or they're going to come want to act at a professional haunt, or they're going to want to, they're going to want to go to a scream park. So yeah, I mean, do your thing. So yeah, home haunts are great. Whether it's a drive-by, whether it's a walkthrough, I think anything we can do that's going to help the holidays feel kind of normalized during this crazy time, go for it.
Right. Yeah, and it's a little tricky. A lot of home haunts do stuff out in the yard. My parents used to do a home haunt, so that's how I got started with back in the day. Probably about your age, 7 or 8, maybe a little older. But they did theirs through the garage and then through the backyard. Yeah. So they're very small, confined spaces.
Yep.
So I would encourage, and you're going to speak to this better, but you got to keep the distance.
Yeah, absolutely. Distance is distance. I almost I told my wife the other night, I'm like, I swear I'm going to change my middle name to Distance. So damn much. But we, the reality is that yes, the mask is going to be, that's distance is actually number one. Distance is the best way to get rid of, not have pathogen transfer. Masks are number 2. Certainly additional PPE is number 3. And those are all things that we can do, and we've got to be able to make sure that we're doing that, whether we're at a haunt or we're at a home haunt. I would certainly, I think even things, if you are a home haunter, I think I've been really kind of working on kind of banging the drum for a lot of professional haunted houses that, I don't know why I'm saying professional haunted houses, because home haunts there's some pretty awesome professional haunts. But
you get a lot of crap, and they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. No, I agree. But there's, like we have a lot of haunted houses that are, they're removing fridge flaps, or they're removing those claustrophobia tunnels that you kind of have to go through, or clothing canals, or they're like vines that are hanging in like in a swamp area. My suggestion, get rid of all of that, because it's only going to take one person who's going to be like, oh, I don't like these things that are touching my face. Wait a minute, everyone else has touched these spaces too. And they're going to call the health department. They're going to turn you in, and you're going to have a $300, $400, $500 up to a $5,000 fine. So,
and possibly a lawsuit depending on that person.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, everybody wants to sue everyone right now. So everyone.
Adding those things into a disclaimer this year is going to be super important.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. Speaking of disclaimer, let me plug this really quick. We certainly don't get money for it, but smartwaiver.com is who we use. Shout out to them because they have a good product. But you all are welcome to check out our waiver as well. It's on our website, fearfactoryslc.com. Up in the top right, I think it'll say sign waiver or click here for the waiver, something like that. Obviously, I'm not the web designer, but we click that. Read through that entire sucker. If you want to copy and paste any of that, copy and paste it. I mean, certainly, put a little note at the bottom that says, thanks Fear Factory for sharing your crap with us. But Ultimately, like, use that language, because there's a lot of COVID language that's in there. There's a lot of just different little details that we've been working with our legal team to make sure that people can use that. Same with the plan, the 60-page contingency plan. If it's useful, use it, please. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'd also, normally you always do a waiver, right?
Yeah, we've had a waiver now on the property for 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, I guess talk a little bit about that. So many haunts choose to do it or not to do it.
Yeah. Well, the probably my biggest person who hates waivers is a good friend of the industry, Timur Gavinsky, and in fact, actually, it's Timur's birthday today. Happy birthday, Timur!
Happy birthday!
And Timur runs a really great consulting firm. There's your plug, Timur. So birthday gift. But he's also a lawyer, and he knows that ultimately, a waiver is probably not going to hold up in court, which I agree 100%. And when him and I were first talking about it, and I was like, yeah, but it's going to help us keep idiots in their place more, so they're not going to be screwing around on property. He's like, yeah, but if they do screw up, you can't do anything about it anyway. And I'm like, good point, but I also want them to know that there's an extra filter there. There's an extra line. Sure enough, it has proved so beneficial. At the end of the day, I will take that to court and I'll fight it till the day I'm dead. But I'm also knowing, like, we're seeing a drastic decrease in people doing stupid stuff in a haunted house. I mean, you're walking through a 55-minute walkthrough that's 3/4 of a mile. Something's going to happen. People are going to be stupid. They're going to try touching something. They're going to try touching an actor. And we have very clear rules that are outlined in the ticket buying process. They're outlined in the queue area, and they're outlined on like a bunch of just different media as well. So we're pretty clear, and of course it's on the waiver. So it's just another way that we can kind of safeguard our team. We're very protective of our team, and it helps us do that. So
what's your plan for like an accidental touch? If an actor accidentally, there's a difference where somebody's being a dick.
Yeah, totally. It happens.
Right.
And I think as all actors, we know that that's part of the industry, that, there is going to be that person that gets scared so much that their hands fly up, right? And it happens. The difference is that when it's intentional, and, that's part of having security and having cameras on deck that we can watch and make sure that things are good. But also to know that, if someone does it once, they say it's an accident. Cool, it was an accident. But if it happens again, you're out of here. So
sure. And
we have a rule at our facility that when we were on the legendary haunt tour in 2018, I think, most of the other haunted houses didn't really understand or didn't do this, which doesn't make sense to me. But we have a rule that if one person in your group screws up, we kick out your whole group, because peer pressure works.
Sure,
it works very well. So use
awesome.
that to your benefit. Yeah, it works out really well. And it's just kind of a way, like, so if there's that one person that's just super loud mouth, they go, I'm going to touch whatever I want. I'm like, cool, come here really quick. Okay, let's talk about this. You all know the rule, right? This dude says he's going to touch stuff. If he touches stuff, you all just made a donation to Fear Factory tonight. We're going to kick your ass out of here.
That's great. Everyone listening right now, that's an awesome tip.
Yeah, we love our customers. Like, we want our customers we want them to come and have a good time. We want them to have a lot of fun. But you have to follow the rules. I mean, that's all there is to it. So,
and this year it's just going to be more strict of following,
Absolutely. Yeah. There's more signage. There's more ways that we're double, triple checking just to make sure that people are doing what they need to do to be safe. There's more expectations. And I think for the most part, people get it. I mean, they get it. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about time ticketing and how we're reducing our flow, but because we're going to have less people on property, we're also going to be able to create a more safe environment, which I think will be beneficial. And who knows, maybe that's going to be a game changer for the industry long-term, which would be great. If we can all operate safer attractions, I would be perfectly fine with that.
So what I love about the PDF that you guys created and that you created is the tiers of a normal risk that would be, what we were all at last year.
Yeah.
And then low risk, medium risk, high risk. I would assume with Utah being as bad as it is, you guys in July opened up in high risk category.
We opened just one tier below. So it's red, orange, yellow, and green, and we opened in orange. However, our protocols were all set for red. So the idea was that if we have to do this again in red, we're ready for it. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, kind of for me here in Sioux Falls, luckily in South Dakota, we're not as bad as some of the other states. I'm just planning right now what I would do right now if I was to open today. And if it gets worse, make adjustments. And if it gets better, which it probably won't, would make adjustments for that. Harley here has a question I'm going to pop up. I don't know what Utah's laws are, but are you requiring your guests and actors to wear masks?
Good question, Harley. Yes and yes. Right now, the county and our state has actually mandated that masks be worn. Again, I'll put my disclaimer that whether you like the idea or not of our government telling us what to do, the reality is that sometimes we just have to make it work. And in this case, that's what we're going to do. So we have, we had a Facebook message the other day of someone that said, if you're going to make masks required, then you're going to lose our business. And we're like, okay, we hope you come back next year. Like, we're sorry.
Right.
We have to do what we have to do. And I think every state is going to be different. There are some states that are, that are requiring employees to wear masks, but not customers. Or there's different variations of it. But for us, we're going to stick with whatever the county and the state is mandating and requiring. And right now, that's all staff and customers wear masks. So, and then we're going to take it an extra step further. We're still screening all of our staff when they come on property. So we're going to do temperature checks of everyone. We document all of that. We also check to make sure if they've been traveling or if they have any symptoms, just to kind of really protect our team.
Right.
We're going to do everything we can mitigation wise, just to make sure that, let's be honest, if anyone's ever worked in a haunt, the haunt plague is a very real thing. And it always comes every year, and it always gets the crew sick. And so our goal is, it'd be really awesome if for the first time ever we didn't have a haunt plague, and people had the strength to be able to just rock a really good season. So
right. And we were talking about this earlier. I didn't even know this. Let's talk a little bit about if an actor or staff member does get COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I was under the impression that we shut down the haunt for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that there's so much information out there of everything that's going on, and it's changing so rapidly as well. I think one of the biggest things just to remember is you've got there's options essentially. If your haunted house does not have to close down, and again, these are specific to Utah. You obviously do some research and triple check. But the idea is that as a haunted house, we want to make sure that everyone is safe. And if you can protect your cast, then that means that you're not going to have to close down for 2 weeks if you absolutely have to. So let me use an example of a bar that was here in Utah. And, and I certainly don't know all the details, but what I do know is that they had one person who was sick, but none of their team was wearing masks. And within 24, 48 hours, half of their entire staff had COVID because of course it spread through all of them. And it was, it sucked for them, but they didn't have enough staff to be able to open. So they had to close for those 2 weeks because you've got a 14-day period that the CDC is requiring as for people to go home and take care of themselves and make sure that they're over the sickness. And so this is the reason why masks and distancing are so vital. So you've got to be able to keep your distance. So like we've really been working hard with our team to talk to them about, it's so nice when you come on property, you haven't seen people for a couple of months, you want to give everybody hugs. We're like, what's up? How are you? How are the kids? It can't happen. There can't be any hugs. Do some long distance high fives, 6 feet apart. But you want to be able to keep your distance 6 feet. So that includes your makeup room. That includes all your operations. We have 150 casts that are here every night. Getting ready for makeup. And we now have this super, super long line through the back of our back of house property because we have to make sure they're all 6 feet apart. So 6 feet apart is going to be key. And then wearing their mask is going to be key. And if you can guarantee those two things, then ultimately not having having a mask and having the distancing is going to allow you that when someone on your team does get COVID, you're going to want to interview them and check them out and say, okay, who were you around? Did you have your mask on? Good. Did everybody else have their mask on? Was there anyone who didn't have a mask on that was around you? Because that's going to be a person that could be a suspected infection. And then also, was there anyone that you were not within, if you were closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes. That's the magic number. So the CDC has said that for 15 minutes. So, Zach, if you and I were actually sitting in this room together right now, and we've now been here for longer than 15 minutes together physically. So that means that if we didn't have our masks on and, I have COVID, that you could potentially be a suspected infection. But if I had my mask, you had your mask, and we were 6 feet apart and still within that 15 minutes, chances are probably not. And so those are the things, like, that's why those mitigation efforts are so important, because what is going to hurt, and what we know from a lot of the big attractions that are closing right now, is that they are so big that they're having a hard time being able to guarantee that they're going to have the staff, because their staff's going to get sick. And obviously they want to make sure that everyone's safe. These are great attractions that are out there, and they want to do their part for safety. But operationally, you've got to have a crew to operate. And if you don't have that crew because they didn't social distance or because they didn't wear their mask, the infection is going to spread and you will be forced to close. And so, doing all of those things ahead of time are going to really be beneficial, certainly for your business, for your bottom line. But let's face it, it's going to be good for your actors, because your actors, they want to come play. Like, this is what we love. This is what we love.
Right.
We have 45 days of a season to get in our love for Halloween. So the more we can do it, the better, which is going to be beneficial for your fans and your customers as well.
An interesting note about the makeup, one thing we're toying around with as an idea, we're a smaller haunt. We only have a little under 5,000 square foot building. So we have about 25 people or so, give or take. And a lot of the actors, depending, it's not going to work for everybody, but we're going to try to see if it'll work to have some of them get into makeup and character at home before they even get there.
Yeah, sure.
So other haunts that are listening, if you're a smaller haunt and your actors are able to do their own makeup, give them that option. We're gonna probably purchase special makeup just for each actor to take home that they can get into, and then it also saves on time. They don't have to show up at 5 or 6. They can show up, much closer to opening.
Yeah.
And we're a small building for our makeup area, so 6 feet isn't as practical for the space that we're in. So we're trying to adjust to that.
Great idea. I love it. Yeah. I mean, and these are the things that, Scott Swenson, who owns Scott Swenson Creative, who does a lot of consulting also for the industry. I was on a panel with him, and he said, don't freak out. You've got to just pivot. You have to really pivot and think differently about where you are in the direction you're at. And I think that's a really good example, Zach, of, we don't have the space, but we need makeup. So let's have makeup done at home. And this is the silver lining of COVID that sucks and is really beautiful at the same time, is that you're going to find that there's going to be a couple of actors who are really good at their makeup. And, maybe you do a couple video promos or, do some demos, have some of your makeup artists teaching other people how to do it, record it, put it out there, let people see. You're going to end up having some really good makeup artists who also can then hurry and act. And now you get 2 people that can do the same thing, and hooray. So
right.
It's all about condensing skill.
And it's also, to some extent, could be a benefit where haunt season, getting ready that night, you don't want to spend you don't have a lot of time to get ready, so right. They can spend 2-3 hours at home before they even get to the haunt, and make it look really good. Not saying that our makeup doesn't look good during haunt season, but you know what I mean? It's a rush to get everyone.
Hours. Yeah, totally.
Right. So that could definitely be a benefit. Going back to talking about like claustrophobia tunnel, those freezer strips, the high touch surfaced areas.
Yeah.
So we took down the claustrophobia tunnel, which sucks. That was one of my favorite things. I've always been a fan of that. Some of the freezer strips, this is a good question for you. One of our rooms is the fog lasers that has freezer strips, which is holding in the fog. So we keep going back and forth. Do we get rid of the lasers this year? Do we have an actor that moves the freezer strips out of the way to let them get in? We don't have the best answer yet, but I don't really want to necessarily get rid of the lasers. So what do you think of that?
Totally. I can answer that question pretty easily for you. We had the same scenario. So we have a space in our haunt. It's about a 40-foot distance. It's an old shipping container. It's a steel container.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And we pumped. It's kind of one of the last things that we do. And for those of you listening in YouTube world, I hope I don't ruin this for you. But it's pumped with tons of fog, very high density fog. And and then we put a strobe light. It's this massive, massive strobe light. I think it's got like 45 LEDs on it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And and then it blacks out, and then it blacks out.
I love it.
So when you walk into the space, all you can see is this white fog dissipating and then coming back and dissipating. It's a really cool. It's just a cool effect. Our tech team, just our construction team, kills it. And they had this idea, and I was like, I don't know if it's gonna work, but everyone talked about it. You know, you could spend $20,000 on this beautiful new scene, and everyone loves the $10 gag.
Right, that's how it always happens.
Don't forget that. Like that's
Right.
so true. So, and so so that room has to have flaps because you got a solid room. You know, not just these lasers that are projecting a couple thousand images, right? Like you've got a solid room that you've got to be able to make sure it's solid. So so when we went to our construction team and one of our owners was like, this is just such BS. Like, why do we gotta make all these changes to this really cool haunted house that we spent all this time working in? I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like at the end of the day, COVID is going to take some fun away from us, and our business is fun.
Right.
But he went back to the drawing board with his crew and said, all right, you guys, like, what do we got? What can we do? How are we going to do this? And what they ended up doing was just drilling a sheet of plexiglass onto a 2x4. That 2x4 became the hinge because you can still, you know, as customers, you've got an actor on the other side of that door who just get a little rope and pull the door open and closed. You can still walk and see it. And or customers can push it with their elbows. That's still okay too. And you clean that surface every 30 minutes and you're probably going to be fine.
Okay.
Or 15 minutes. I mean, you know, that actor just happens to have a bottle, a spray bottle and a rag. So as soon as that group leaves, they hurry and they can wipe it down every 15 minutes and the next group comes through. They don't know any different. And it worked. And it worked so well that we're actually going to leave it that way because it actually kept the fog in better.
Oh, sure.
Silver lining, right? Like we all fight this COVID thing, and if you can lean in a little bit and really give it some thought and pivot, chances are you're going to find a better solution anyway that you wouldn't have thought of previously. So
that's awesome. So that spray bottle, are you just using 99% alcohol?
No. So there's two options to this. The CDC recommends a couple of different things. I would suggest two. One, you know, anything above about 800 ppm, 800 parts per million is going to be a disinfectant. So you've got a sanitizer. You want a sanitizer and a disinfectant. So you know, have your bottle. It's going to have 1 part. Oh man, don't quote me on this. I think it's 1 part bleach to 3 parts water. Someone please.
Okay.
So you want to be able to do that. You want to have a high enough intensity that you're going to be able to just kill it pretty quick. And usually it's got a 5-minute dry time that'll kill a surface. So there's also chemicals that you can buy that have a faster dry time, like a 3-minute dry time. There's a pink solution at Costco that you can buy that has right on there, coronavirus kills in 3 minutes. There's a couple of different solvents that you can buy just depending on what you want to do and how much you want. If you want to make it there, you know, or if you want, you want to buy a chemical. So, but we both. There were some spaces where, you know, we really wanted just to make sure they were clean. One of my most favorite comments from being open May 29th when we were open during the pandemic was that people have never been in such clean restrooms before. We did, like, we made sure, you know, we have porta potties on our property, and we're an old abandoned cement factory, and we're 120, 30, 40 years old. And so we don't have a permanent restroom facility. So all of ours are porta potties, and we had a team cleaning literally after every single person. They were going in and cleaning. And of course that was a bleach because, you know, even though there is kind of this disclaimer that safety theater doesn't work, it does work. You know, I used to run casinos and hotels for a living. And the reality is that if you walk into a hotel room and you smell lemon, something's not clean. If you smell orange, it might smell clean or fresh, but something's not clean. But every single person says if they smell bleach, they think the room's clean. That room could be filthy dirty, and it could be a bleach smell that's in there, right? Like it could be an air diffuser that's letting out bleach smell. If it smells clean, people think it's clean. And so, you know, that was one of the things that we did. We made sure that bleach was being used in our porta potties, and it was really great that people saw that and appreciated that just how clean they were. So, and that's something we're going to keep up. We'll make sure that we're doing our best, because that was. I think we all know that porta potties can get a little ugly sometimes, but to really show that attention there, I think customers really appreciate it. So
yeah, that's awesome. And definitely during these past few months, I'm constantly and I'm sure you did too, like, oh crap, I didn't think of this. Oh crap, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Didn't even think of the freaking porta potties.
Yeah.
So I definitely, that's a great tip.
It will, that's that plan. So that 60-page plan, every detail we covered is in there. And that's what I think has been really beneficial for folks, is because they're like, let's be honest, there's so many millions of things to think about. We just can't think of all of them. And so, you know, talking with each other and supporting each other, that's why I love HAA. You know, there's a lot of opportunities there. Certainly there's forums online. You know, Facebook's got a couple of really good groups. And our plan, you know, certainly use our plan and read through it and pick apart the stuff that you're like, oh yeah, this is really good, or this is a good idea. You know, one of the things that we talked about makeup, one of the things that we also did is we went completely contactless in our makeup room, which was its own challenge.
Sure.
You know, it's like there's some really great brush makeup artists out there, and for us to be able to move everything to airbrush so that there was no contact, that was a little tricky. And you know, we had artists that were like, you got to be kidding me, like I picked up an airbrush once in my life, and yet I've been doing brush for 10 years and just killing it. And sure enough, like we just told everyone, like, step outside of that comfort zone and let's see what you got. We also teach an internship here. We have our Facebook, no, not Facebook. We have a makeup internship. It's an FX internship. It's all summer long. They meet here on Saturdays for 2.5 hours. And we made a decision, and it's free. It's a free internship. So if any of you live close to Utah, give it some thought. But every year we have like 60, 70 people apply, and we can only take 16 people. And in this case, this year we made a decision that we weren't going to do we weren't going to do brush. And we bought everyone an airbrush, and we said, this is it, use it, get used to it, do your absolute best. And there's a lot of people in our internship program that never in a million years thought they'd pick up an airbrush. And now here they are really rocking it, shadow and contours, and even like veins that are really hard to do. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Pretty cool. So yeah, it's really awesome to see, you know, and we have a really great team, you know, Becky and Chelsea that are our makeup managers. They kill it. And it's all about really leaning into this COVID nastiness, and kind of embracing the challenge and figuring out a way to resolve it, to pivot and keep moving. So, yeah.
That's awesome. You guys watching, make sure to put some questions in here so we can answer them live. I definitely have a bunch, so I'll keep going. But we're doing this for you guys as well. So if you've got questions, definitely put them in the comments. We'll pop them up and we'll answer them. Yeah, I don't see any right now. Last one was from Harley.
Cool.
So, yeah, I guess I'm not sure where to go from here now. That was a lot.
Yeah, I think
processing so much, you know.
Well, one of the things to think about too, you know, we can certainly talk more about makeup, because I think that's one area that a lot of people don't think about. Makeup also is considered a personal service, or what's considered personal services. So hair cutting, beard maintenance, makeup in general, those are all personal services, gyms. And so because you're in that personal space, that means that your makeup artist needs to wear a mask at all times, and preferably 2 types of PPE is what most states are now suggesting. So you have a mask and then a plastic shield.
Sure.
That's pretty beneficial. We went an extra step and we gave everyone gloves as well. And then in between each person, they discarded their gloves. And, you know, that means, you know, a lot of people don't know how to don and doff a glove. And so we had to like do some training about how to do that properly. But, you know, our makeup room is massive. It's this huge room. We usually can put 17 artists in there with 17 models. And now we're down to having 5 or 6 stations in our room, because those artists also have to be 6 feet apart. So that's something to think about, is, you know, that's exact, you know, going back to your idea of having people do makeup at home. That's going to be great, because it's less you have to worry about, because yeah, you don't have space to, you know, space your makeup room every 6 feet. It's just not going to fly. So makeup has been really tricky to be able to kind of think about. And I think also we can talk about communication. Like how are you communicating? So I don't know, you know, how many of your folks are home hunters versus are haunted house owners or operators. But ultimately, you know, part of communication is going to be, how are you telling this story? Obviously you want to control the story. You want it to be positive. But I think you've got to be able to tell it in a way that's still brand specific. So, take, for example, for us, we have our trailer, the trailer that you aired earlier. We've got a really good trailer that's great, shows off how great the property is and the factory is. But then we've also added now a couple of different things at the end of our video, as well as on our website. If you go to our website, there's a big bar that says, we're dedicated to safety. Click here to learn more.
You have your website scrolling on the bottom.
I see it.
Yeah, so definitely check that out, you guys.
Yeah, the website, there's a bar that's there, and point out the elephant in the room, right? Like, we all know that COVID sucks.
Right.
So let's talk about COVID. Uncle COVID's here to stay for a while. So, put it right on your banner. In a lot of our social media, we've specifically put like our commitment to safety on there, and that they can look at our, we have the 60-page plan for the general public, but we actually had a 2-page plan that we sent to all of our customers. And when you buy your tickets, you're going to get that email back. It's like, here's your expectations. Here's what we're expecting from you. Here's what you can expect from us. Just ways to make sure that people feel safe, that they understand that they are safe, and that we're doing every possible thing we can to ensure that safety and health is vitally concerning for us. So we make sure that's happening, and we're communicating that. If you have an opportunity to, my home haunt, I had a big board with all my stuff on, like it was a 4x8 that just kind of lived up in the attic for the rest of the year. But, figure out a way to communicate that. If that means that if your home haunt has a Facebook page, sweet, type it up, put it on your page, create an announcement for it. If it's an actual haunted house, same thing. Spend a little bit of money on signage. I think, you can get some pretty cool deals if you just kind of look around for them. There's a lot of printers right now who are hurting. Because quite frankly, business has dropped off, and there's been some really cool deals for even like these little, I don't know what it's called. It's like a plastic, the plastic that you would use for a yard sign, and you got those little metal things that stick into the ground. They stick up.
Right. Yep.
So whatever that material is, they now make an A-frame. It's an A-frame sign, so that it's got 2 sides you can print on, and then there's a sandbag that sits underneath that.
Okay.
And right now, those typically are selling for, a couple $100, usually like anywhere between $150 to $210, $220. And right now we've got a local printer that he just literally bought a truck of this stuff, and he has them on sale for $30, $40 right now.
Wow.
And so, those are great ways, and anybody can be a graphic artist, whether you're a good one or not is a whole other conversation. You don't really need to ask my graphic designer, because our graphic designer is awesome, but sometimes he can't do something, and I'm like, okay, I'll hurry and do it. And of course it looks like crap compared to what he can do. But, you can at least type something up that's going to have your rules on it, have it printed.
Right.
It's going to be beneficial, and or print it on paper and, put it on a board. I think there's ways to do it for a couple, $20, $30. And it's certainly going to be beneficial for you. But in general, what we're learning and what we polled from customers after they left our property was that the fact that we took safety and health so serious made them feel more safe about purchasing a ticket.
Sure.
That's a valuable takeaway. Number 2, of course, was, seeing people in PPE. Did that make people more scared? Did it make them less scared? And people said across the board, it made them feel more safe, that we were taking it seriously. And granted, we're the first haunted house to do this in the world. So I think people were like, oh, really? Like, we had people from California, from Washington, from Las Vegas, like all states of the Western U.S. were coming to Utah to be part of this experience. And so it was nice to be able to hear that while people don't feel safe in their own communities, they felt safe coming to a haunted house. And we joked about it. One of our other owners, Heidi, used to tell people, my goal is that I want Fear Factory to be more safe and more healthy than the grocery store. The reality is it probably was.
Right.
You think about the number of people who touch something and then they put it back. That bag's not getting cleaned.
Right.
Think about people who are using a restroom door or not. Are those doorknobs getting cleaned all the time? When you go to do your check-in, that pin pad, are they cleaning the pin pad every time? Are they cleaning the gun every time? So there's a lot of things, compared to a haunted house where there's all these things that are being done: cleaning, masks, mitigation effort, fogging. We have a fogger that we're using to help fog and sanitize the specific big rooms, as well as all of our costumes each night. It certainly was beneficial for us to pull it off. But when we heard from the health department that there were zero concerns, nobody called in. We didn't formally ever see anyone, but supposedly it sounds like there were a couple of different staff from the health department who were on property that night. And yet 2 weeks later, 3 weeks, now here we are months later, zero concerns. We had 2,000 plus people on this property. We did it the right way. We were proactive about it. And hopefully we'll be able to continue that path, and we'll continue to make sure that people are safe. And that, we're working with our officials who are, they're busting their butts. I mean, their job is to keep us safe. So don't get too pissed off at them. Their job is to make our jobs a little bit harder, and that's okay. Right. For those of you who have to deal with fire marshals or anything, same thing. Mm-hmm. Their job is to keep everyone safe. So, don't kill the messenger. So, I think being proactive in all of that is it's beneficial for everyone. And, we all keep doing the best that we can.
So we got a question here. This is actually from Greeny, one of our clowns at the Terra 29. What are the best and most cost-effective ways to control the line? What did you guys do for the queue line?
Yeah, we have a couple of efforts in place. So first, let's start with time ticketing. We've officially pushed time ticketing. It's something that we had planned to do in 2020 anyway. We've been planning this for 2 years, so COVID was like, oh, perfect. So we have time ticketing, which means that we're reducing the number of people on our property greatly. Most restaurants are doing this. Most venues are doing this at this point. We have a local attraction. It's an amusement park here, and they were operating at 30% occupancy. So time ticketing is going to allow you to really decrease the amount of people who are on property at a time. That'll be beneficial for us. And then instead of the 6-foot distancing for us, we took it a step further, and we actually did 8-foot distancing between small groups and 12-foot distancing between 2 groups. Because I'm sorry, I'm going to use my hands again. I know I talk with my hands, but if you have a big group of 6 people here and a big group of 6 people here, and these are, they're supposed to be 6 feet apart, all of a sudden this little space right here is only like, it's a foot, maybe 2. So we decided to go 12 feet between group to group, and that allows more space in between because, anyone can take, I'm sure we all saw it. There were pictures of Universal's Volcano Bay, and it was a couple days after they opened, and there was this picture of just, 200 people lined up in this queue line, jam-packed together, and they were like, really, Universal? Like, really? That's how this is going to go? And totally shamed the brand, and they had some PR work to do. And so keeping people off property for more time, queue line is going to be important. And then one of the extra things that we did is we actually took our entire queue line and we decreased it by 50%. So, we usually have a queue line that'll hold 4,000 people for 3 to 4 hours every night. And we now can take that and we've decreased that. So pretty much you've got these wraparound lines, which no one really likes, but that's the best way to do it. So now every other lane is empty. That's going to allow for greater spacing, which also gives our cast an opportunity to get in and do a little bit of creeping, still staying within that 6 feet if possible. And if they have a mask and customers have a mask, that's the beautiful part of it. So, being able to do their part, and certainly things are going to look different. I think, that's one thing that I can't say enough. A lot of times people are like, I just want my Halloween back. And the reality is it's not going to come back for a year or two. But it's going to look different, and you got to go with the flow and still make it work however is best. So,
and here's another one, and I was going to ask it too. Talk a little bit about the fog machine and like what solution you use to put in the fog machine to sanitize the costumes in the building.
Yeah, so it's a specific sanitizer. Again, we're not getting any plugs or money for this, but it's a company in Texas that Fearworm, one of our Fearworm's a really good marketing producer for our industry, and Fearworm actually connected us to them. But it's called Disinfx, so disinfects, but DISINFX. But they sell a fogging machine and the fluid for it. It's a specific solvent. It's not like something that you can use in a regular fogger, regular fog machine. It's a specific solution that essentially the fog machine kind of sprays on. It creates a fog, and it can kill stuff for anywhere between, I think, 8 hours all the way up to like 24 hours. So definitely beneficial to have. One of the things that we also talked about, Zach, you had mentioned the fog machine in your laser room. So one of the things, and certainly, check with who your supplier is from. The Haunted Attraction Association reached out to Froggy's Fog because they're epic.
Right.
And one of the cool things that we learned as an industry is that Froggy's, because of, I don't even remember what the chemical is, but there's a chemical in the fog that actually makes it harder for bacteria and specifically for, pathogens to attach to. Because a lot of people are like, well, if I'm walking through the air and I'm breathing the air and the molecules are catching that fog and attaching it to the pathogen, and then someone else inhales it, is that a concern? Can I even use fog? Froggy's suggested and said, depends on the kind of fog that you're using, but there's a couple of different versions of what they have that are, they essentially don't allow that to connect. So you've still got just water molecules in the air, but they're obviously not water. It's a little different.
Awesome.
So pretty cool. It was a good learning moment, even for me. I had no idea. So
yeah, I'll definitely look into that. We already use their fog, but probably don't have that specific type.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was their swamp or if it was the haze. I honestly don't remember. So
sure. Yeah,
that. Yeah,
that's awesome. So talk a little bit. I'm curious about time ticketing. I know. Terror in the Corn in Colorado have been using time ticketing for a long time.
Yep, those guys are awesome.
How successful was it? Like, what problems did you have with that? Like, talk a little bit about that whole process.
Yeah, time ticketing. For us, it's somewhat new. Like I said, we've been planning on going this route for 2 years now, and so it's we've been building up and kind of preparing for it. There's a lot of math involved, not gonna lie. If you don't like math, it's probably not a good route to go, because you've got to know your speeds, your input speeds, your group speeds, your variability on if groups are coming in 2s, 4s, 6s, or 8s. Variability of if you have a queue line, if you have a chute system or not. So a chute, for folks who don't know, a chute is, think of a roller coaster. So when you go to get in line for the roller coaster, you can either have, car 1, car 2, car 3, or car 4. And that's called a chute system. And so you queue people up into the chute. So if there's a group of 2 and there's a group of 4, then you put them together for a group of 6, and then they all go into the haunt together. The reality is that's not going to work this year.
Right.
You can't put groups together. So that means we had to rechange all of our math that we had been planning.
For sure.
Because, and even if a group of, let's say you've got to know your throughput speeds to know you can put X number of people through X number of minutes, which depending on your X number of hours you're open equals X number of people that you can put through. But that can change because it could be, X could be a group of 2 or X could be a group of 6. And obviously we'd prefer 6 because you're going to make more money, right? But that said, it's tricky. It's really, really tricky. And then, from that, once you figure out what your equation is going to be, you have to say, all right, how many of these are we going to sell online? We're going to push most of our sales as much as we can online this year, just to kind of help reduce cash flow. Not cash flow, but
right. Yeah. And
then, we've got general admission tickets. We have VIP admission tickets. And then we're going to reserve, some for standby for people who show up, who didn't listen to us. We're going to try and do our best to market as much as we can. You want to buy your tickets online because that's going to save you so much more time. But for people who want that experience, and sometimes that experience means being on our property for 3 or 4 or 5 hours and waiting in the lines and seeing the different monsters that are coming around. And if that's what they're into, they are going to wait a little bit longer, but we have to create a standby for them as well so that they can buy a ticket that way. So there's lots of just little variables to kind of think about. And certainly, one of the things for, especially home haunters, this is something I learned back when I was home haunting, when I had my property in Iowa, was the philosophy and the psychology really of queuing is really interesting. There's a big research project that Disney was actually a part of. And what they found is that, and if you were to look at most of the lines at Disney, most of them turn right. I know that we're mirrored, so the opposite. Yeah, they're right.
Right.
They'll turn right, and they'll keep turning right, and then they'll turn left. Because usually when you first enter a line system, we typically are on autopilot, and we're just walking along, and we're getting in our line. And so most people will usually take the right. The reality is that the left line, or the middle one, that usually it's a right, a middle, and a left goes to like VIP or goes to someone else. Take the left one always, because it's a shorter line. because they know that most people turn right, so they have to hold more people in the right lane compared to the left. So same thing for, if you are creating a line, or you're building a haunt, or you're building an attraction, ultimately keep that in mind, because you're going to want to think about how that's going to ultimately affect customer service at the end of the day. So yeah.
With time ticketing, did you have it set that their tickets are at 7:15 and they have a grace period?
Yep. Yeah. So we have 30-minute windows, and every 30-minute window includes a 5-minute buffer. So, if you've got an 8 to 8:30 and you show up at 8:32, cool, we're going to get you in. If you're showing up at 8:40, we're going to put you in the standby line. And as soon as we can get a spot open, we're going to get you inside. So, and our time ticketing is very specific, because it guarantees the time that you're going to get on our property, not the time that you're actually getting into the attraction, into the haunted house. So we now are going to be checking people's tickets when they come on our property to make sure that they are within that time window. Again, we want to reduce the number of people on our property. So safety, safety, safety. So once they are on our property, then they're going to get in our queue. There's still going to be probably a 30, 40-minute wait in our queue, which allows for, we don't want to lose all of that ambiance, this, massive, beautiful 6-building facility. And you kind of stand in the middle of it in our graveyard. And of course, the monsters are there, and concessions is there. And there's a lot of different things to kind of make sure that the experience is still very tangible. So
sure. So how many people or groups did you allow per half hour then?
It depends. We're going to look at anywhere, plus or minus 200, 300, 400, depending on the night, depending on kind of once we get the machine cranking.
Sure.
That's the hardest part ultimately is, are we in the business to make money? Yes. But before that, we want people to have a really good experience. And, there's some haunted houses that they just crank people in, and it's literally almost a conga line, or, you've got this like small, maybe there's a 5-second or 10-second break in between each groups. And we don't feel like that's a good experience. We want to be able to give some extra time. Typically we'll have 35, 45, 55, even 60 or 75 seconds between groups, because we really want to space them out. And when you're walking through this massive structure, like there's 18 flights of stairs, that's a lot of space, and people are going to go a little bit slower up those stairs. And so we have to calculate for all of that. And that's part of, all of our security team that's on deck, and our safety team, and our flow team, and the cameras, to make sure that we know what's moving in which direction, so that we can just kind of mitigate any flow concerns as well. Because we want everyone to have a really good experience. And I think, the reality, shameless plug, but the reality is that if I could tell all viewer or all, haunted house goers one thing, it's don't be super disappointed if you bump into another group. If you did, that probably means you were either going too slow or too fast, and the other group was going too slow or too fast. So, for me, like, that's kind of protocol for me. Whenever I go to a haunted house, if I bump in front of another group, I'll kind of pull back for a second, but I'll watch. And if there's not another group and I can tell they're going slower than we were going, I'll totally be like, hey, sorry guys, come on ahead. I don't care.
Oh, sure.
So,
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think, I think, there's always different kinds of people that go through haunted houses. There's the people who go through because they want to get scared. There's the people that want to see every possible set detail. Haunters, I'm calling you out. I know that's you.
Yeah.
And, we all do it. And there's all these different variations. And so, you've got to kind of plan accordingly and kind of balance it all out. So,
yeah, it was tricky. We constantly always adjust those times, and groups still will bottleneck. So I assume this year I'm just going to put more time in between groups just to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And that's,
we're smaller haunts, so we can control that a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even, having less people on your property means you have more flexibility to do more things to create a better experience. So that's, I think, one of the things I'm looking forward to of hopefully some of these things are going to stick around. And is it going to be harder for us to make more money? Sure. But are we having a better experience? Yes. Now, I think Halloween in general is currently an $8 or $9 billion industry. So, it's
just haunted houses, I think, is like 400 million.
Yeah, it's a ton. It's a ton of money. So, and certainly Halloween includes, haunted houses and merch and home haunts and, all the stuff you buy at the store. But but knowing that Halloween in general is surpassing a lot of other holidays, I think is a great thing. And I think we got to stay safe, keep our momentum, and stay focused. And we're going to get through this. We'll totally get through it. So,
yeah. Well, awesome, man. We hit our hour mark.
Well, look at that, right on time.
I know. I don't see any more comments. I definitely appreciate your time. Hopefully this was useful. I mean, I'm going to definitely pin this video on the top of my our Facebook page, and hopefully, you know, spread it around to people that couldn't tune in live. I'm sure some are at work, you know. But yeah, they'll see it. And I definitely learned a lot and definitely appreciate the time, man. Anything you want to leave everyone with? You kind of almost did that already.
You know, no, I mean, I guess if anything, just, you know, as a reminder to be proactive, that's ultimately it. If you've got, you know, being part of a group, and if it's not HAA, you know, find a group. You've got, you know, local, there's a lot, you know, like here in Utah, we have the Rocky Mountain Haunters group, which is a great group of, you know, professional folks and folks who have been doing home haunts for decades, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And find a group. And just, you know, being able to support each other is going to be key in all of this. I think a lot, you know, we're hearing that, you know, you stay at home and, you know, and support your family, which is great. But for those of us that are hobbyists, our shared hobby is also our extended family. So take care of each other, be proactive. You know, if you are thinking you're going to open, just do it safely. There's nothing worse than one haunted house that's going to ruin it for everyone. And I hate for anyone to be made that example. And, you know, before long, we're going to get a chance to see each other again. We'll all be back at Trans World again. We'll be back. You know, HAA has been working on some really cool new trainings and classes, just
awesome.
for more additional education and support as we look at how do we educate everyone, but also promote and really focus on how do we make our industry stronger. So, yeah, some really good stuff coming down the pipe. So, but thanks, Zach. Thanks for kind of helping be the blowhorn and kind of getting this information out there. I think the more people that have it, the better. It's really validating to hear that, you know, all of our hard work and sweat and tears and, you know, me not sleeping for 2 months straight is paying off, because I think a lot of our team is really proud of what we've been able to pull together. And shout out to my team and to our owners and our whole team just kills it. I'm really proud of them. So. Yeah,
and how awesome that, you know, you release this for free, where some haunts that want to make that extra buck, you know, would have definitely charged for it. But what you did, I think, is the right decision, and it helps. What I love about our community is we help each other out. You know,
yeah, for the most part.
So many. I'm also a magician, and well, normally I'm on the road doing shows, but I haven't had any since like March. So, but yeah, we're not as friendly to share secrets and stuff. That's what I love about the haunt community, is we all, you know, are in this together and we share, you know, as much as we can. Real quick, shameless plug for Fear Factory. Give us, I think it's just Fear Factory SLC for any social media.
You got it. And follow us all of it. TikTok, Insta, it's all out there.
Awesome. And then, yeah, fearfactoryslc.com. Thanks so much, man. We're going to end it. See you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care. Bye.